Hello, everyone, and welcome to the We Know Ball Baseball Preview Show, where today we're going to deep dive into everything baseball, Major League Baseball, possibly some college baseball. I'm thinking we might pick a college baseball team and just kind of ride the wave, throughout that whole college baseball season, see if they make it to Omaha. If they do, maybe we'll go vlog it, cheer for them, go all out. So, baseball is my favorite sport. One of my favorites to follow. A huge Yankee fan. Grew up a Yankee fan. It actually kind of all started when I was younger. Preschool age, my grandfather used to pick me up every day, or my grandmother used to pick me up every day from preschool. She only lived about 3 or 4 blocks away from my preschool at the time, and she used to pick me up every day and take me to her house, and we would enjoy some nice Tony's pizza, preferably cheese only. And I would enjoy kind of playing, watching cartoons, baby Looney Tunes, kind of throughout the whole day until my grandpa came home, and he would just kind of take me into his little computer room man cave area, and that's where he just has a whole memorabilia cache just full of Yankee stuff. Everything from an old seat from the old Yankee Stadium signed by the greatest closer of all time and the only unanimous Hall of Famer, Mariano Rivera. He's got a bunch of signed baseballs, a bunch of pins, cards, pennants, you name it. He's got it, and he's got a whole room full of it, and it's just a tremendous sight to see. So, that's kind of the reason why my father says I was brainwashed into being a Yankees fan, but I like to be called gifted with becoming a Yankees fan. So, we'll kind of deep dive right now into kind of everything baseball. Kind of start out with some division previews. Get into that. We'll get into kind of some possible playoff predictions along with these division previews. We'll get into our kind of usual debate a wall. I've got some kind of cool things lined up here for baseball and for this kind of summer and this season. So we'll kind of deep dive right into it right away. Let's kind of start off with we'll go with the National League West here. You got the Dodgers, the Padres, Giants, D-backs, and Rockies. The Diamondbacks have a crazy deep farm system. I think they'll be pretty solid if those guys end up being kind of solid. But that's kind of a few years away. So I think they'll kind of be. I think the Diamondbacks might end up being in last place this year, following probably the Rockies at 4. They still have Chris Bryant. I think he'll emerge into a better player, and I think he'll kind of everything will kind of turn around into Mr. Bryant's favor in Colorado. So hopefully their pitching does pretty solid too. I know it's a hard place to play is Colorado, so we'll see. Third, I do think the Giants will be third. I think they'll be a little bit better than 500. They went 81-81 last year. San Fran kind of missed out on a lot of key guys like your Carlos Correas, your Aaron Judges. Everybody kind of thought a little bit those guys are going to be there, and they didn't. So hopefully they can figure it out. And then in second place, I think the Dodgers will be in second place. Not nothing against the Dodgers. It's just they're going to kind of come off a little bit of a down year from the great year that they had last year. And I think the Padres are just a better team than them. They ended up beating them in the playoffs and in the NLDS and moving on. Hopefully the Padres they've got great pitching, Joe Musgrove, Yu Darvish, and they added, Xander Bogaerts, and Tatis should be healthy and hopefully solid after his suspension. I really am cheering for the guy. I do like him a lot. So, we'll see. Moving on to the National League Central. This is kind of a toss up as well. The Pirates and the Reds were tied for last. I think the Reds also have a pretty solid farm system of some great infielders like Ellie De La Cruz, and they have a former National League Rookie of the Year in Jonathan India, who did have not as good of a year as he did his rookie year, but he's still a very solid player, and I think anybody would take a Jonathan India on their team. I would put probably the Pirates at 5, the Reds at 4, maybe even the Reds at 3, depending on how the Cubs do. They lost Wilson Contreras, but they did get Dansby Swanson as well as Jameson Taillon from the Yankees. So the Cubs are going to be a solid team as well, a team to kind of watch out for. But I think the Cardinals are going to be tough to beat, as well as the Brewers. The Cardinals got Wilson Contreras from the Cubs, in free agency. So they just kind of boosted up their catching after, losing Yachty and Pujols. It'll be interesting to see how good the Cardinals are, because they do have the reigning NL MVP in Goldschmidt. And they have Arenado, who was also up for the National League MVP award. And then you have the Brewers. The Brewers have a great pitching rotation. It's always kind of their bats as of kind of the last few years that have faltered. Nobody knows what really happened to Christian Yelich. But we'll see. Maybe he ends up getting traded sometime. The Cubs also added Bellinger, who I think will like Chicago as well. Not as high of a market as the Dodgers, but still enough people will go to Cubs games, and you can't not hate the Cubs unless you're a White Sox fan. So, or an NL Central team. Moving on to the National League East. I think the Nationals will probably be last again. They sold the team. They sold off all of their assets and best players, and it'll just kind of they'll keep rebuilding for a while. Same with the Marlins. I mean, they traded Pablo Lopez. They did get the AL batting champ in Luis Arias, but you never know really with the Marlins. The National League pennant winners, the Phillies, I think will give both the Braves and the Mets a solid run for their money. With any team, I think out of these three, it's a toss up. The Braves are solid. I think they might have a down year. No Dansby Swanson, but they'll find someone good to fill in those shoes. Plus, they have a great bullpen and starting rotation. Spencer Strider was up for Rookie of the Year in the National League as well. So, who knows what's going to happen there. You got the Mets. The Mets will probably end up disappointing everybody in September and end up losing like normally. So, if they make the playoffs at all, that is. So, we'll see. They added both Seiya Suzuki. No, not Seiya Suzuki. What was his name? Steve Cohen really kind of bolstered his team. They tried to get Correa on that big deal and, went to the same doctor. They got Kodai Senga from Japan, and they ended up snagging Verlander as well. So, they'll be an old pitching team, but, they're still solid. Verlander won the Cy Young Award in the American League, and Scherzer's not one to shake a stick at. So, all right, moving on to the American League West. I think the sleeper team will be the Rangers. I think the Rangers will move up to second or third. Houston, they may have a down year, but I highly doubt it. They're the World Series champions, and they didn't do much in the offseason. If not, they probably got a little better. Adding Jose Abreu early on in free agency, yeah, they lost Verlander, but Verlander was never really their true ace kind of towards the end of the year. I mean, they had Christian Javier, Framber Valdez, Lance McCullers Jr., they're kind of pretty solid. They have about 6 or 7 starters that, they had about 6 or 7 starters last year that could probably be 1, 2, or 3 man guys on any other team. So I think the Astros will be pretty solid. Mariners will be good again. They still have Luis Castillo, who's solid. Robbie Ray, hopefully he gets back into true form. And Seattle's just super young. They have J-Rod, who was the American League Rookie of the Year, and they'll be good. The Angels are starting to kind of sell. They are staying. the organization itself decided not to sell the team, so they are staying. The ownership teams is staying in Anaheim for now, which means Shohei will probably leave. Would be great to see him in pinstripes, but you kind of never know with him and with kind of agencies and what goes on. They do still have Mike Trout, who's kind of the centerpiece and still the face of baseball and probably one of the greatest baseball players to ever play the game. But you kind of also look at, he's 31, kind of injury prone, hasn't won very many postseason games either. I'd also like to see him go to a different team, like, any other team that's kind of a postseason bound team to help him hopefully win a win and kind of cement his legacy as one of the greatest players of all time. But I think it'll probably be another three-man race in the West between hopefully Texas, Seattle, and Houston. Maybe even Texas pulling it off. They added some great pitching depth. DeGrom's one of the best pitchers of this generation. They've got Corey Seager, who's solid. Marcus Semion's good when he's healthy. So I think Texas is a very good sleeper team that everybody should hopefully cheer for. The AL Central, don't really see a lot of movers and shakers here either. Would like to see, Cleveland do pretty solid. I think Cleveland will probably win this division again. The Twins might end up squeaking out possibly a wild card, but you never know. They unveiled their new uniforms, just different letters and color combinations, in my opinion. The Twins will end up choking as usual. You never know with the Twins, though. They'll find a way to lose to the Yankees in the postseason like they always do. Moving on to one of the toughest divisions in baseball, in my opinion, the AL East. So you've got the Sox, the Orioles, Tampa, Toronto, and the Yankees. All 5 of these teams, when they're hot, are World Series contending teams. So looking at kind of the future of all of these teams, Boston didn't really do a whole lot as far as, off-season moves. They're not really looking too solid. I mean, they lost Bogarts. They did sign Devers to a massive extension, so that helps. They got Corey Kluber, Kenley Jansen. Who else did they get? Justin Turner and Masataka Yoshida. So, I mean, a lot of players that are kind of either older or unproven. So we'll kind of see going forward. And, I think Tampa might have kind of a down year with their pitching possibly coming back from injuries. A lot of guys are for them. So, you never know with Tampa. And then I think Baltimore ends up squeaking out and being the third team in Toronto. They have the best farm system in baseball. And I think, they've got Rutschman, Gunnar Henderson, and let me look. I mean, they've got like the number 1 overall prospect. Yeah, I mean, they've got Gunnar Henderson, Jackson Holiday, who they just drafted number 1 overall. And they've got, so they have Gunnar Henderson. They've got a pitcher, too, that's really good. Grayson Rodriguez. So, yeah, I mean, they've got a whole bunch of very solid guys that'll probably get called up here this year, and we'll probably make a solid young team that could make a move in the AL East. But I think the Blue Jays and the Yankees are going to be the 2 teams that are going to be kind of tough to beat. I mean, Blue Jays didn't really do a lot this offseason, but they're still a 90 win team that's going to kind of compete. And the Yankees, they haven't done really much with their batting lineup, but you look at their pitching, their starting pitching, and they got better, and they have probably the best starting five in baseball. I mean, their starting four are all-star guys and have been up for a Cy Young. So, you got Garrett Cole, the ace, Carlos Rodon, who is another ace, could be an ace in pretty much any other team. Very powerful command lefty. You got Nestor Cortez, another lefty who has the craziest arm angles of any pitcher I've ever seen. He can go pitch from up here, he can sidearm it, he can three-quarter anything he wants, and he can throw any pitch and put it wherever he wants. And then you got Severino, who is kind of a wild card. 9 times out of 10, he's going to go out there and he's going to dominate. But there's always that 1 time out of 10 that he may struggle a little bit, but he's still going to give you all he's got, and it's maybe like a 2 or 3 run game with him, giving up only 2 or 3 runs, which is still very solid. But, there's a lot of question marks with the Yankees this coming into spring training with, who's going to be playing left field, shortstop, third base, because we had tried to upgrade those positions, kind of quietly during spring training, and there's still plenty of time for them to make some moves. Don't count them out yet. There's still 45 days before opening day, so don't count the Yankees out. They made moves. They got Jose Trevino, Josh Donaldson, IKF, a whole bunch of guys, right before opening day. And, one of them panned out to possibly be our starting catcher for the future and was the Platinum Glove Award winner in the American League. So, a lot of bright things ahead. Hopefully LeMahieu comes out and is healthy, and then he can be our third baseman. And then one of the young bucks like Peraza or even Volpe come out and win the job during spring training. Or if neither of them can, maybe we find a trade candidate, maybe, reach deep and get Fernando Tatis or something like that. You never know. But, kind of the biggest question mark is left field. Really kind of nervous about that. It's looking more and more like the possibility of Aaron Hicks there. I'd rather have Oswaldo Cabrera there. He's a super young guy that can play any position, kind of like a DJ LeMahieu, but younger and healthier. So I would prefer that, but you just never know. We'll kind of see when that time comes. But hopefully some of these young prospects that are coming about will kind of break down some of these top baseball prospects and how good some of them are going to be, at least from the Yankees standpoint. Anthony Volpe, I think he's going to be a highly touted prospect. He fields the ball really well. He hits the ball phenomenally, but it's about time for him to get the call up, in my personal opinion. He's third on the top 100 prospects for Major League Baseball, and I think we're missing a key hole at shortstop. Have really missed it since Jeter, but at some point they're gonna have to call him up. But we'll see. A lot of pretty solid guys here. None that I want to talk about. So Jackson Holliday, I mean, he was the number 1 pick last year. I mean, his dad is Matt Holliday, former Cardinal great. So, we'll see with him. It's too early to tell, in my opinion, right now. Same with Drew Jones. His dad is Andrew Jones, Hall of Famer. I think he'll be solid, but a lot of these kids, they just got drafted like in June, so it's way too early to tell. Jason Dominguez, I think, is my favorite favorite prospect. He's only 19, and he's getting comps to guys like Mickey Mantle and Mike Trout. So, he's a super exciting person that I'm very high on. So he could be a guy that goes for 40-40 in a season. There's been talks, kind of, if that would ever happen, and I think he would be one, at least on the Yankees side of baseball, to happen. But yeah, that's kind of all of them. We'll keep scrolling kind of quickly here. And kind of go through like maybe 5 prospects an episode. Ooh, Austin Wells is on here. I love Austin Wells. He's a goofball. He's got a nice mustache and wears rec specs. And he's a catcher. But he kind of reminds me of like a Gary Sanchez. He's more of a bat guy than a catcher. And I'm a huge defensive minded guy when I like catchers. Ken Waldichuk, he was a guy who I liked as a Yankee. Let's see who else. I think there was a Yankee that was going really high, but I don't know if he would be a top 100 guy yet. He's a Yankees top 5 guy, and they just drafted him from Vandy. Those are kind of the prospect watch to keep an eye on, kind of throughout the year, as far as Yankees and some other guys go. Alrighty, so the next kind of thing, we'll kind of start this off as a segment, and kind of just start it, and whenever I run out, we'll run out and maybe go on to a different player. So the first baseball player that we are going to cover in the crazy stories in baseball is Alex Rodriguez. So the reason why I decided to pick A-Rod is because he has one of the craziest stories in recent baseball memory. He's been caught twice with steroids, had now the second longest suspension in all of baseball history, and he's just kind of weird. He's kind of a weirdo, and had a bunch of run-ins, with Madonna, and became so obsessed with himself, and just super weird. Was best friends with Jose Canseco, who is one of the most hated people in the sports and baseball world. So, there were times where it looked like he didn't really get along with Derek Jeter. Widely regarded as the greatest shortstop to ever play third base. But A-Rod. So this is kind of a Red Sox Yankees A-Rod story. So the Baseball Writers Association of America dinner was meeting, and A-Rod ended up sitting right next to Brian Cashman, who is the general manager for the New York Yankees, has been for the last 25 years. And he was talking with him. This was when A-Rod was with the Rangers and won the MVP award, but he was very unhappy with kind of Texas, as they didn't do anything around him. They spent all of his money. They spent all of their money on him. If you look at their payroll, A-Rod made more than the entire team combined. It was pretty insane. So he was talking with Brian Cashman, got a few drinks in him, and Cashman went up to him and said, it's a shame you wouldn't play third base, because we could really use a third baseman. Because right beforehand, Aaron Boone, who was their third baseman at the time, and had hit a home run to send the Yankees to the World Series, broke his foot playing a pickup basketball game, and so they were in desperate need of a third baseman. Well, A-Rod went up to him and said, well, who said I couldn't play third base? Well, after that, the teams decided to meet up and discuss a trade for A-Rod to come to the Yankees. But a few days before the Baseball Writers' dinner, the Red Sox and the Rangers had agreed to trade for A-Rod to Boston. However, the trade was denied. I don't really remember why, and it ended up not happening. Well, a few weeks pass by, and A-Rod ends up in pinstripes, and this turns into a huge feud kind of in the early and end of the 2000s and into kind of the 2010s between A-Rod, Boston, and the New York media. We'll kind of cover more of that as the weeks go on and as we kind of deep dive more into baseball. Kind of another thing we'll kind of get into is the unwritten rules of baseball. We'll kind of get into what they are and kind of what my stances are on it. Some of them are super crazy and weird, but I think some of them need to be changed and some of them need to be kind of kept. Kind of the biggest thing that people have talked of late as far as unwritten rules are when you're ahead by a large margin and you run up the score. I think that is kind of old baseball for sure. I've always been taught in all my sporting events to kind of never take your foot off the gas, and I truly believe that. You never know when a team might come back, even if it's 22-0, 22-1. Your bullpen can kind of go and put up a stinker and slowly progress into it being a closer game than you want. So I think it's good to kind of keep your foot on the gas. But major leagues, when guys start putting in position players to pitch, they've obviously given up in the game, and maybe take that 3-0 every once in a while. But guys that have the green light, they should be more than welcome to swing if it's in their zone. It's up to the managers to put whoever they want, and if they've given up and the team hasn't given up and wants to kind of up their run differential, up their batting average, kind of help themselves out, why not? So that's kind of my take on it. And if you guys didn't really like any of that stuff, you can go ahead and debate a wall. The next portion of the show is something that I think is super cool and super fun. We have a former Red Sox bullpen catcher, Major League staff assistant for Boston and Alex Cora's staff, Mr. Mike Brenly. He was part of the Chicago White Sox, Arizona Diamondbacks, and the Boston Red Sox organization. Did I say Chicago White Sox? I meant Chicago Cubs. Part of the Chicago Cubs, Arizona Diamondbacks, and Boston Red Sox organizations. Played with guys like Mookie Betts, Giancarlo Stanton, Andrew Miller, Marwin Gonzalez, DJ LeMahieu, Josh Harrison, Javier Baez, and Didi Gregorius. So enjoy the interview. We're going to kind of go over a lot of the basic stuff, the same questions that I ask every guy, and then we kind of deep dive into a little more kind of personal baseball stuff, talk about last year, kind of some other behind the scenes stuff that, some people may not know, playing with some other guys, how that felt, seeing stuff live, being, in Fenway Park every day, kind of driving to that as your office, that kind of stuff. So enjoy and give it up for Mike. Alrighty, today we welcome onto the show Mr. Mike Brenly, a former bullpen catcher for the 2018 World Series champion Boston Red Sox, and the current Major League staff assistant. And I believe you are the replay manager too, is that correct?
That's correct, yeah.
Yes, you are for the Alex Cora's Boston Red Sox.
That's right.
Awesome. So how are you doing today?
I'm doing well. How about you?
I'm doing great. I'm really excited to kind of get the baseball season rolling, and excited to kind of, me being a Yankee fan, getting to interview a guy who played on Boston and also is on the staff now. So that's actually super cool and exciting.
Yeah, usually you don't get too much interaction Red Sox Yankees, but since it's the off season, I guess we'll make it happen.
Yeah, we can make one exception for now. So kind of getting things started here. I kind of ask my guests the same questions, just very few, just to kind of get the ball rolling. And the first one is it's called This Magic Moment, and this is kind of derived from the Orlando Magic during the Shaq Penny Hardaway times. But this is kind of just a moment in sports where you or somebody else would become a fan of a certain team.
For me, growing up the way that I grew up with my dad being a player and a coach, and then a broadcaster in the game, I've always just kind of been a fan of whoever kind of he was working with at the time. So growing up, I was a San Francisco Giant fan because that's who he played with and also coached growing up. So there were a ton of guys on that roster, Matt Williams, Kurt Manwaring, Robbie Thompson, I mean, countless other guys that really, really helped me along my journey and just kind of let me pick their brain, talk to them, be around a lot. And then when he moved on to the Diamondbacks, obviously being in the clubhouse with those guys every day and being a little bit older, being in high school was a big deal. You know, I got to be around Randy Johnson and Kurt Schilling and all the guys on that roster as well and be able to talk to them. You know, looking back on it now, I wish I would have maybe picked their brains a little bit more. But just watching the things that they did, you know, the work before the game and the work after the game and the pregame stuff they had to do to get their bodies ready, really kind of showed me how to be a professional, how to be a pro, how to go about it each day. And then kind of when he got into it with the Cubs and the broadcasting side, obviously you're not around as much when you're a broadcaster. You're up in the booth a lot, but spent a little time around some of those guys and actually got to go to big league camp with the Cubs for a couple of years. So getting to spend some time with, Giovanni Soto was a guy that was there at the time and really kind of took us all catchers under his wing and kind of showed us the right way to do things. And, we're the first ones in the building and we're pretty much the last ones out of the building as the catchers because everything kind of goes through you. So I didn't really grow up a huge fan of one certain team, just kind of whoever Pops was working for at the time kind of became the favorite team.
Awesome. So kind of branching off of, the 2001 Diamondbacks, me being a Yankees fan, that was kind of that World Series ended one of the greatest dynasties in baseball history, kind of Jeter's Yankees. So kind of walk me through that and kind of what it felt like kind of conquering the Yankees during that hottest run.
Yeah, going into that World Series, I think that there weren't many people giving the Diamondbacks much chance because, like you said, the Yankees were right in the thick of that dynasty mode, and it's almost like David versus Goliath story, and especially everything that had happened in 2001 with 9/11. I think even more people were on the bandwagon with the Yankees that might not have originally been. I like to tell people that I think the only two fan bases that were rooting for the Diamondbacks were the Diamondbacks and the Red Sox Nation. Everyone, you kind of felt for the Yankees that year, and obviously what they had to go through, what the city of New York had to go through, was such an unbelievable tragedy that went on with that. But, that 0-1 team for the Diamondbacks it was built different. It was built in a way that stuff like that wasn't going to scare them. We didn't have a young roster. We had a bunch of veterans. We had a bunch of veterans that it might have been their last chance. Mark Grace and Matt Williams and a lot of those guys, they were kind of coming down to the end of their playing careers. For them to kind of get that ball rolling in the right direction and go into New York and lose those games that we lost them there was just, I've never heard a plane ride so quiet. I mean, just 6 hours of silence. I mean, and usually after a game, even a tough loss, guys will stew on it for an hour or so and then, okay, what next day. But that plane ride was dead silent and the guys, got back home and took care of business in Game 6 and in Game 7. But that was, for me personally, obviously I'm biased, but it has to go down as one of the best World Series ever to be played. Just the games, the passion, everything that went into it was just so unbelievable and so good for baseball. Just to be a part of it was such a cool experience.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, I would agree with you in that I would say that is one of the best World Series ever played. You have a lot of great iconic moments, and one of the stats that goes around in kind of baseball is, you look at Mariano Rivera, unanimous Hall of Famer. More people walked on the moon than scored a run on him in the playoffs, and Arizona won the World Series and is one of those very few teams to score a run on him in the playoffs. So that's just kind of just wild.
Yeah, when he came in for the eighth inning, I think it was 1, 2, 3 on 3 punch outs. I mean, it was quick. And, obviously you're in the dugout, so you want to believe, we got this, we can do this. But, I mean, it's the best closer maybe of all time out there, and he's just doing what he does in the postseason. And like you said earlier, the dynasty, it was all against the Diamondbacks at that point. And, I'll never forget as long as I live, and I'll tell anyone that'll listen to it. Mark Grace came in the dugout and he was leading off the bottom of the ninth, and he yelled at the top of his lungs, "I believe, boys, I believe." And, to put the at-bat together that he did and lead it off with a single just kind of brought some positivity into the dugout and some belief back into the dugout. But, yeah, when you see number 42 come strutting out of that bullpen for the Yankees at the time, it's tough sledding. But the boys had the and went out there and did what they had to do.
Yes, awesome. So kind of gravitating from a team aspect to just more of a player aspect. When you were growing up, you obviously kind of had the Giants, the Diamondbacks, the Cubs, and even kind of now the Red Sox. Is there kind of a favorite player that you had kind of either growing up or playing with that just kind of, something clicked in your head that, you just really liked about him?
For me, I always, just because of being a catcher, Dad was a catcher, I kind of always loved watching the catchers. So for me, my main guy was probably Craig Biggio. I just liked the way he played the game. He was a former catcher that obviously got moved a couple different times in his career. But just the way he played the game, his helmet was dirty, his uniform was always dirty. He was always grinding his way through a game. And I always just liked watching him, the way he played. And as far as kind of my favorite catchers, I think, someone that doesn't get a lot of conversation on him on how good he was defensively is Mike Matheny. I love watching Mike Matheny catch. He was one of the best blockers I think the game has ever seen. Just the way he ran the game, I think we saw it a lot in Yadier Molina when he took over the reins there in St. Louis. It was like a seamless transition from Matheny to Yadi, and then obviously Yadi, he had, my main guy was Biggio, but I like to keep an eye on a lot of the catchers as well.
Yeah, and it kind of looks like there's going to be a good pool of catchers in the AL East this year with, Jose Trevino, the Platinum Glove Award winner, and then Adley Rutschman, who's arguably one of the best catchers in baseball already, and he hasn't even played a full season.
Yeah, what Jose does in New York is special, and I think that went a long way to the success the Yankees had this year. No offense to Gary Sanchez, but we all kind of know that his defense isn't his calling card, and he's in the lineup for his bat. And just to see the difference when you put a guy back there with the defensive prowess that Jose Trevino has, it helps everything. It helps your pitching staff. It helps the confidence of the team. Just your defense. You're not giving up those extra 90. You're not giving up cheap bases. You're not doing things like that. And just the way he runs the game and works with those pitchers. And like you said, Adley Rutschman, it's incredible to watch how quickly he has turned into, like you said, one of the tops in the game so far. And, it's one of those things where you love to see it, but you hate that he's in your division because he's going to be a problem. And up until last year, the Orioles were a team that you could kind of get fat on. You were in the division. You could kind of, okay, we're going to go play Baltimore, hopefully get our ball rolling again. But now that's not – they got some young talent. They got some guys who are hungry to win. They brought some key veterans to help those guys with their coming through the big leagues. So, Brandon Hyde, I know him pretty well. He's a good guy to have at the helm of that team. And, they're going to be a problem for a long time.
Yeah. And looking at Boston, too, you have Jason Varitek as kind of your guys' game coach, essentially. How does having a guy who, could manage a game so well at the catcher position be in your guys' dugout?
Yeah, Tech, I actually get to work elbow and elbow with Tech every day. I help with a lot of the catching stuff and also some of the game plan stuff as well. But just the way the competitor he was. I mean, I think everyone that loves baseball has seen the A-Rod Tech, thing. And just that's how he was. He was go at it all the time, as hard as I can, whatever I got. You can ask Tech, and he'll jokingly say it. He wasn't the most talented catcher. He wasn't the most God-gifted catcher, but he worked hard, and he paid attention, did his homework, and he knew the opponent better than the opponent maybe knew themselves, and he knew his pitcher better than they knew themselves. So he's never been unprepared. I've never seen a guy, even to this day, study and work as hard as he does and go into every single day as prepared as he can possibly be. And it's impressive to watch a guy that had the success that he had, the career that he had, the World Series titles that he had as a player, to now continue that as a coach and want to pass that down to future catchers and future coaches and people that are willing to pick his brain and talk to him. And, he's willing to learn too. He's really grasped onto the analytic stuff. He's really wanted to get all that information, try and figure out how can we bring this to the guys the best so we can put our best foot forward every single night. So it's awesome to get to work to him. And, I even pinch myself from time to time when he'll call me and his name will pop up. It's like Jason Varitek is calling me. Like, I watched him growing up. I was a huge fan of his growing up, and now he's calling me and we get to go to dinners together. So it's a really cool thing for me to have a mentor like that in my corner to help me out and just be able to talk to whenever I need him.
Yeah, that's awesome. It's always good to have, one of the greats to kind of mentor you. So that's super awesome. The catcher position is one of the positions that I think of isn't really, the best, kind of the most, the prettiest, I should say, kind of an unsung hero of late. You do have some of the greats, like Pudge and Varitek and Posada and Piazza, but that's kind of really it when you look at some of the great catchers. So do you think, I'm trying to word this here, with the catchers being like the unsung hero of baseball, how would you say are some other, or who would you say are some other unsung heroes in the baseball world?
Oh, geez. You can go down a list of guys and women now, as we're seeing. Every team seems to be bringing women in that have such good knowledge of the game and such, bringing such a different outlook on things. I think it's such a good thing for baseball just to grow. But, a lot of things happen behind the scenes that nobody sees. Most fans think, oh, the players just get there and they play the game at 7:00. Well, it couldn't be further from the truth. We got guys coming in at noon, getting treatment, doing their lifts, getting their early work in with coaches or staff or whoever it is. But, we all have to get to where we're going. We all have to have a bed in at night. So for me, I would think like the traveling secretaries of the teams are probably the most unsung heroes in all of sports, not just baseball, because they got things coming at them left and right, and roster moves and trades, and this guy's sick, so we have to leave him behind with COVID. And they have to make adjustments on the fly. They have to be able to reach out and get flights or different things and buses and hotel rooms. Oh, shoot, I forgot to leave tickets for my 12 family members, and now they got to get tickets in an hour before the game. And, just the traveling secretaries, I say, probably deserve a tip of the hat. And as far as, clubhouse guys as well, guys that do the laundry, guys that make sure the players have everything they need, their bats, their helmets, their gloves, they do almost everything for the players. Anything they need, anything they want, hey, I need my car washed, or, can you head over to my apartment and meet the movers, or these guys are willing to do anything to help these guys just go out and play the game so they can clear their mind and do what they have to do. So there's a lot of people behind the scenes, but, the traveling secretaries, the clubbies, the trainers, those types of people, you can't say thank you to them enough, and we wouldn't be able to do what we do without them.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, absolutely. Shout out to all them. Those unsung heroes truly help teams run for sure. Kind of being on a playing side, football wise for me. And then I went on and was a student assistant my final year. So kind of seeing both of those sides, it really shines a light on what people do kind of outside of playing the game. So being from South Dakota, we have Mount Rushmore. And I kind of like to know, theme wise, certain kind of what people would put on their Mount Rushmore. And you kind of being a major league catcher, you can kind of decide what you want to do, maybe like top catchers on your Mount Rushmore, or, people who you caught their bullpens for. I know like Chris Sale in the 2018 World Series is a huge one. Kind of capping it off. So, kind of you have the stage for kind of Mount Rushmore and how you would like it.
Yeah. So, obviously, like I said, I don't like to veer too far from the catchers, Mount Rushmore. There's been a ton of good catchers. And like I was kind of saying about Matheny, there's been a ton of catchers that don't really get the deserve or stuff like that. But, Johnny Bench, Yogi Berra, the unbelievable success he had, and obviously that that hurts a little that he was a Yankee, but you got to give props where props are deserved. And then, some more recent guys. I think Pudge has to be on that list. I think what he did for the position, he brought a lot of athleticism to that position where maybe in previous years it was seen more of a bigger kind of power hitter guy, someone who just kind of catches the ball or maybe has a really good arm. But, Pudge brought athleticism, he brought energy, he brought excitement to that position. And then, Buster Posey has to be on that list for me. Just,
Absolutely.
he wasn't even really a catcher until I think he got to Florida State. So for him to kind of transition into that position and do what he did with the Giants and lead them to 3 World Series titles and take a hold of that organization and that franchise and lead them to the success that he did. And, it ended up being his last year, but it might have been one of his best years. And the Giants were a 100-win team and everything like that. So I would say those are probably the 4. Obviously, there are a ton of other guys that there's a room for argument and discussion. But for me, those are kind of the guys that I look at that kind of revolutionize that position.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think that's a great Mount Rushmore. I also am a huge fan of Joe Torre, mainly for his managing career, but you also have to bring up, he had a phenomenal catching career, especially with the Braves. So
forget that, like you said, a lot of people see him as Joe Torre, the manager, and, he had a long playing career before that and a very successful playing career as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So kind of sticking on kind of a little bit of the Yankees and you being a Red Sox a guy, we see kind of the rivalry ever since, its inception with Babe Ruth, and just kind of the long drought with the Red Sox and the Yankees just being the Yankees and winning 27. How do you think the rivalry has changed, from its inception to kind of even the early 2000s? You look at the A-Rod Veritex scenario, you look at the 03 and 04 championship series and kind of all of that. And, Pedro and Jorge Posada had that huge rivalry. Kind of, how do you think that the rivalry has either evolved or changed in today's game?
I think one of the biggest changes just has to be free agency. When back in the day, you never saw one going the other way ever. And then, you got, Johnny Damon, you got some other guys that have gone either way. And, it's really turned it into, it's still a rivalry and it's still like a bubbling volcano. We saw with Joe Kelly and Tyler Austin, it can pop off. And there's a excitement, there's a momentum in the stadium every time we play. I was actually watching Duke, North Carolina before we hopped on here, and neither one of those teams is necessarily where they want to be. Obviously, they've kind of had a rough start here to their seasons, but just that rivalry brings it. It doesn't matter whether you're 4th and 5th in your division or you're tied for 1st. It's going to bring it. All those games are going to be high energy, high stress. So I think just the evolution of free agency has, I don't want to say tamed it a little bit, but just made it a little more friendly to a way. You got guys switching sides in the All-Star game and guys work out together in the offseason now. They hit together, they get to know each other and families and stuff. So I don't want to say it's a little calmer, but it's definitely not as crazy as it used to be, but it's definitely ready to go at any time. I mean, the energy in the ballpark for the wild card game in 21 was just, I mean, you can't, a 1-game wild card against anybody is stressful, but then you see those guys on the other side and what's on the line. And it was probably one of the more louder stadiums I've been, even compared to 2018, just to hear the fans and the energy and the excitement. Like you could feel how excited those fans were. And then, certain plays happened in that game. And obviously us coming out on top was great, but just the energy in that ballpark, you really can't describe it unless you are at the stadium.
Yeah, absolutely. My buddy was at the game before the wild card game, like the last one at Fenway when Stanton hit that 3-run shot over the monster. And he said he could hear the crack of the bat and all of Fenway was just dead silent because they knew. And then just the bat flip and it was legendary. But I got to witness the craziness of the rivalry in Fenway this year. I went for the games the 13th and the 14th when Gleyber Torres had the Little League home run and Judge hit 2 in the first game. So
yeah, I think I'm sure the Yankees are the same way, but for us, when we go into Yankee Stadium or they come into Fenway, there's no sweeter sound than just silence. Being booed is one thing, being yelled at is one thing, but to hear silence in Yankee Stadium, because you rarely hear it. There's always a buzz, in Yankee Stadium, whether the game's close or not. But to hear the silence of it is great for a Red Sox person.
yeah. Speaking of kind of the buzz of the Yankees, the biggest storyline for the Yankees this last year obviously was Aaron Judge and hitting 62 home runs. Probably the greatest bet in the history of sports, betting on himself and collecting a bag, becoming captain of the Yankees. With you kind of sitting in an opposing dugout and witnessing a good amount of those home runs, kind of how was that for you in kind of witnessing that kind of history?
I mean, obviously it's history. It's MLB history. And I think we saw down the stretch there before he hit it in Toronto, every network, MLB Network, ESPN, everything was flipping to his at-bats. And you can only think of he says he wasn't, but just probably the pressure he was feeling, right? Not only is he trying to break this record, but he's doing it as a Yankee. He's trying to break, a former Yankees record. Just he had to be under, and just the way he handled it all. He seemed calm and cool and collected on the surface. Now, when he got home, he might have been going crazy. I don't know. But just to be able to watch him do what he did, obviously, as a Red Sox, you don't really want to root for him, but it's history. And any time in this game we can see history with as long as it's been around, it's a pretty cool thing. We didn't want it to be against us. Be against anybody else, just don't do it against us. And I think we rolled into Yankee Stadium late in the year, and he needed one or two to set the record. And we obviously didn't have the year that we were wanting to have in the way he was rolling, and especially at Yankee Stadium where he has unbelievable power to every part of that park. You just kind of hope, just don't do it. Just don't do it against us. We don't want to all the highlights. We don't want to be in history for it. And luckily we escaped getting out of there without him doing it. But, just to see it was cool. Obviously, I feel like there was a huge sense of relief from everybody, not only him, but his teammates, just being able to kind of set their sights on the playoffs at that point. Obviously, I don't think he or anyone was worried about it. But, once you start getting down to that few of games, you start to think not. So just for him to be able to take that pressure off of himself and enjoy the playoff run and stuff like that was cool. And, it was good for him. It was good for baseball, just like McGuire and Sosa. It was good for baseball, and people put their eyes back on the game that might have been away from it. So it was cool.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, I would agree. So kind of rotating back to the Red Sox, as a Yankee fan, I do not like the Red Sox, and I can't, but I do give a lot of respect, and I do give credit where credit is due, and I think Alex Cora is a very smart and good manager. Even though you guys did not have a very good year, or a year that you guys may not have wanted last year, what is it like working with a manager like Alex Cora, who has been successful, in Houston, kind of all that stuff?
Working for Alex, it really is special. You hear from all these different staff members and coaches and things that work with all these different managers and how good they are. Yeah, but Alex really does treat you like a human being. He doesn't treat you like a number. He doesn't treat you like just another staff member, another player, this or that. He really does care about family and your family doing it. And, he doesn't want, not that he doesn't want you to do your work and be prepared, but he doesn't want guys to sit at the ballpark for 14 hours a day. He wants you to spend time with your family or get out and go see a city if we're going to a new city or stuff like that. But I think the biggest thing Alex does well is just the way he communicates with everybody. He lets you know what he's thinking. If it's a platoon situation with a couple guys, he'll let them know, hey, we're going to face so-and-so on Tuesday, so you got that game. And he lets guys get prepared mentally for when they're going to do their thing, or if he needs to pull them in and, talk to them and let them know what they're thinking. He's a very, very good communicator. And he keeps it fun. He lets guys have fun. He wants guys to have fun. He wants music. That's the first thing he yells after a win is musica, musica. He wants guys to have fun and joke around with each other. But, once it's 7:00, once it's time to go, lock in, get after it, do what you're supposed to do, be prepared, know where you're supposed to be on every play. communicate. That's one of his big things in the dugout. He likes the iPads. He likes what they bring, but Alex being kind of an older school guy, he wants guys communicating. He wants guys talking about pitch repertoire, what they saw, what he did to me last time, what he did to me the last time we played these guys. He wants that communication. So that, to me, that's probably his number one attribute, skills and the way he interacts. But the way he manages games, the way he's able to get the best out of all of our guys, it's pretty incredible to watch. And I'm just like with Tech, I couldn't be more happy that I get to, be in his hip pocket and kind of get to learn from him. Because like you said, he's had his success.
Yeah, kind of barring that 2017 little scandal, and he's very open about it. Is he still kind of open about it in the dugout and kind of, between you guys?
Yeah, he doesn't hide from it. He knows he made a mistake. He knows he got caught up in winning, and whatever happened in Houston happened. And, he's very open to talking about it. He's very open to questions, but we also know Alex. We know that it was a situation where he probably got caught up in trying to win, and it was what it was, and it's over. And just like most people in the game, I think we've kind of accepted that it happened. We know Alex. We know the person that he is, and that's not who he is now. I think he really learned his lesson, and I think the biggest thing that came out of it was he got to spend some time with his family and really reflect. And when you're away from the game, when it's the way it was, it really makes you appreciate being in the game, around the guys, around the players, traveling with us and doing things like that. So, even throughout, that he would still check in on us, and he was able to and stuff like that. But, he's always around for us if we need him. But, 2017 was a few years ago, and we kind of moved on from it, and we don't really want to, dwell on it too much.
Absolutely. Yeah. Always moving forward. So speaking of moving forward, Boston has kind of made some moves and kind of missed some moves this offseason, losing a key piece like Xander. But, you re-sign Rafi to a huge extension. That's a huge move. He's Garrett Cole's father. You also got Kodai Senga, I believe it was, and then, Kenley Jansen, Alberto Mondesi, a lot of key moves and some holes to fill. What type of direction do you think you as a staff is going with this team, as far as, kind of some of these guys are a little older, some of them might have some health risks?
Yeah, like you said, obviously anytime you lose a franchise pillar like Bogey, it's a tough one to swallow at first. Kind of, I think, I don't want to say anger, but a little confusion maybe on, okay, what we let him go, what was the situation, how did it go? But we had meetings in Boston a couple weeks ago with Chaim and everybody, and Chaim just laid it out for everyone, and he said, this is what we're thinking. This is what the thought process was. This is what we thought the value was, and this and that. And, if Bogey walked out the door, this is what we felt comfortable with doing. And when he laid it out like that, and he put together some facts and some numbers and some different things, you kind of take a step back and say, okay, it wasn't just, oh, we didn't want to give Bogey that much money. A lot went into it. A lot of process went into it. And, we got some good young players, hopefully, coming up behind him that might be able to take the torch and run with it. But, I think like everybody in baseball, Rafi had to be a Red Sox. You need that guy. You need that Aaron Judge or that guy to build around. Rafi's such a good kid and such a good player, and just comes to work every day and works hard. And, he's the type of guy that we want to build around. He's the type of guy we want in our lineup every day. And, like you said, when there are certain places in the game, New York, Boston, LA, there's certain places that are tough to play and tough to have success. And I think that's why a lot of Red Sox fans might have been tough to swallow when Bogey left, because he had that success. He won multiple titles. He had such great success there. So for Rafi to have that in his back pocket is good for us. And, we brought in some pieces, like you said, Kenley Jansen, Chris Martin in the bullpen. If we can kind of get them at their best, I think that'll help kind of lock down things and move, John Schreiber up to the 7th rather than the 9th inning. We got Justin Turner, and, I know that he's, kind of on the latter part of his career as well, but just seeing what he's done since he got to LA, revamping his swing, revamping his playing career is pretty impressive. So I'm excited to get around him. And, Kike has been our number one supporter in bringing these guys in. I think he's had more contact with these free agents than Chaim has. he's recruiting these guys, he's talking to them, and he's had relationships with a lot of those former Dodger players. So Kike has probably been our best GM so far this offseason. But, just having Costas too for a whole year, I think will help. He got his feet wet a little last year, was able to kind of get the flow of the big leagues and how things work. So I think with Costas over there at first base, that'll be nice just to kind of settle that position. It's kind of been a question mark for the last few years since we lost Mitch Moreland. We had Bobby over there. We've tried some other things over there that haven't gone well so far. So having him over there will help. And we're all hoping and praying more for him, but just that Chris Sale can get back to hopefully Chris Sale. He's had so many fluke, crazy injuries over the last couple of years, and there's not a bigger competitor on this earth than Chris Sale. And he wants nothing more than to go out there every 5 days and give his team everything that he possibly can. And he's not a guy that wants out of a game. He's a little bit of a throwback, or if he starts it, he wants to finish it. And, that's a good guy to have the top of our rotation. Obviously we lost Evaldi. We might not get Waka back. He's still out there, but we did lose some veteran presence in that rotation. But we're all excited about where Bayo started going towards the end of last year, and we think he's going to take huge strides this year. And it'll be a little bit of a different scenario, but we'll just see and hold on for the ride, and hopefully when the chips fall where they may, we're right in the middle of it.
Absolutely. I think the AL East is for sure the toughest division, and you never really know how the chips are going to fall kind of towards the end of the year, especially with this new kind of evolved schedule where everybody's kind of playing everybody. So it should be very interesting to see.
Yeah, it should be. And, I don't think anybody's really upset that we don't have to play the AL East as much as we've had to play them in the past, because like you said, it's a gauntlet. I mean, through this division. And there can be years, especially with the new wild card format, when you get 4 teams out of the AL East. It's tough. It's tough every night. You never really get a breather. You never really get an easy game or a starter that might be, not up to where Garrett Cole or Nestor Cortez or any of those guys are. It's a grind every single night, and every single night is just a 9-inning battle to get the W and to, just win series. That's our big thing in the clubhouse. Just win series. And then at the end of the year, you're going to be right in the teeth of it, and then you'll give yourself a chance. But just win series is our main objective every series we go into.
Absolutely. So kind of backtracking here, you were kind of talking about how you want to get the stars that kind of play in, those New Yorks, Boston, LA, Chicago, and you actually in your minor league days actually played with a few, like DJ LeMahieu, Mookie Betts, one of my favorite players actually, believe it or not, and Giancarlo Stanton. So kind of tell me what it was kind of like playing with them, and just if you have any crazy stories or anything about them.
I mean, playing with those guys, you kind of know when you play with a guy, he's got it. Like they carry themselves differently, the way they do things, the way the the ball comes off their bat, the preparation that they do. I played with DJ the first year he came into pro ball. He came straight to, I think it was low A Peoria or maybe high A Daytona. He came straight from LSU to high A. And, just the way he went about his work, DJ's a very quiet guy. He doesn't say much. He keeps to himself, but he's sneaky funny. When you kind of get to know him and you kind of pull him out of his shell a little bit, he's sneaky funny, and he's just a great dude to be around. And obviously I was hoping we would bring him in when he left Colorado, and it probably landed in the worst spot. I could root for DJ, but other than the times we're playing the Yankees, pulling for DJ, he's just such a good dude. And my wife got to know his wife really well, and we spent some good times together. And so I'm pulling for DJ when we're not playing him. But being with Mookie was a special experience. It was my first year with the Red Sox, and the team that I got put on in Portland, I was definitely a fish out of water. I think we had a top prospect in every position of the infield, and then I was somehow mixed in this roster. I think they just got confused there with these guys. Mookie was a second baseman in Portland. And very athletic, just did everything easy. He never struggled to do anything. And, one day Billy McMillan, our manager, came up to me and he said, hey, we need to go out and work with Mookie on his throws to the bases. The big team wants him in the outfield. I said, okay. So we went out in the outfield, and he took some in center. He took some in right throws. And I mean, just like he had been an outfielder his whole life, just easy. Got to it and no big deal. And, Mookie's the same kind of way. He's very calculated. His work is very calculated, and especially since him and JD got together in Boston, they're very much on the same page. And it's going to be interesting to see them together in LA, because they very much work two peas in a pod. They kind of work together. JD kind of helped Mookie with the new swing and everything like that. So I'm interested to see how those two will be back together. So that'll be fun to watch. But they were just good teammates more than anything. Good dudes, good people to be around, good teammates to ride buses with all night. And, it was just a lot of fun in the minor leagues. Obviously, it's a grind and, long games, and you're hot dogs out of the concession stand on the bus on the way to the next. But, just good dudes to be around and have fun with and get to know, and now to see their success and the things that they've done in the game. It's pretty special.
Yeah. Did you ever get to go bowling with Mookie?
I did not, and I kind of kicked myself that I didn't, because a lot of these towns that we were playing in were kind of small towns that all had bowling alleys. I don't even know if it really kind of came up that he was such a good bowler, but I definitely heard after that year how good he was. And then you see videos, and I was flipping around the channels one night, and he was commentating on a professional bowling league.
Yeah.
So I sent him a picture of it, and it doesn't shock me that he's good at bowling. He's good at basketball, and everything that he does, he's pretty good at. He's just so athletic and just moves so well and easy, and so that doesn't shock me that he has many 300 games himself.
Yeah. I mean, it's crazy how much of an athlete that dude is, and I wish him the best success in LA, more success than I wished him in Boston. So
I bet for you that's an easy one to do.
Yeah. So, little Boston question here. So I was doing a little kind of research and stuff, with Brady retiring. And Boston has not technically won a title since Tom left. Is Boston still title town, even though they haven't won anything since he left?
I'm going to say yes. I'm going to say yes, and that's not just because I work there and I'm afraid I'm going to get eggs and stuff thrown at me. Since was there, it's incredible the run that Boston's been on, and I know it's hard for a lot of people, not only Yankee fans or New Yorkers, to handle. But you look at the Celtics, you look at the Bruins, you look at the Patriots and the Red Sox, and I think that it's hard sometimes when we do have a down year, or not the year that we were expecting. It's hard for the fans in New England, and it's hard for us. But when you take a step back and really look at the big picture of things over the last 15, 20 years, whatever it's been, there's been a lot of success in that town. And it's hard to remember those times when your teams are going through some bad times. But, the Celtics and the Bruins are carrying the torch right now, and hopefully can continue that success into the postseason and maybe bring a title back to Boston. But, we're hoping too that the Red Sox can sneak up on some people and do some things that not a lot of people are expecting us to do, and put ourselves in a position to maybe make a deep run ourselves.
Absolutely. I mean, I can never truly trust MLB.com's preseason AL East rankings because, like you said, it's a gauntlet every single year. So,
yeah, it's tough. Like you said, you see those rankings, you see those things, and it either puts a lot of pressure on you or it takes a lot of pressure off of you. If you're picked to finish first or second or even contend for a World Series title, that's a lot of pressure. And, if you're picked to finish towards the bottom of your division, it's almost like bulletin board material. All right, okay, fine. You want to pick us to finish fourth or fifth? You want to pick this guy to have this kind of year or do this? Okay, well, we're going to go out there and do what we're supposed to do. And, one of Alex's big things is, and especially, like I said, in those certain markets that are tough with media, he block out the noise. Nothing else matters except the four walls and us. That's all that matters, no matter what anyone says about us, no matter what anyone says, whether it's good or bad. We're going to stay within us. We're going to stay within these walls and do what we're supposed to do. And at the end of the night, we're going to hopefully rack up a lot.
Awesome. Awesome. So I don't really have anything else. Do you have any questions for me before I let you go?
I don't. This was awesome.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much for your time. And, I'm not going to root for the Red Sox, but I will root for you the rest of your way.
Well, I appreciate it. This was fun. And yeah, when we play the Yankees, I won't, but I guess for you, we can kind of pull for them.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much, Mike.
You got it. Take care.
And that was our interview with Mr. Mike Brenly. I think it was a fantastic interview. He's a very fantastic guy. Great, great guy. Good to know him. Good to meet him. Hopefully, he's going to be a recurring guest on the show. Would love to have him on again. Just a lot of fun to talk. Sports and kind of a different side of being a Yankee fan and seeing it from a Red Sox point of view that is someone that is in the system, in the actual Red Sox system. So it was good to learn and good to know, and makes me excited to kind of get ready for the AL East this year. Just a couple things, what I'm watching, what I'm seeing. Just kind of getting ready for baseball, watching a lot of Yankees highlights. Pitchers and catchers report soon. 45 days till opening day. It's right there. And then just The Last of Us. It's getting really good. Getting really excited for episode 5 here. And then just keep watching Cheers. One of those old classic shows that you just gotta watch just because it's one of those really good shows. Another story, kind of ending the night and ending the show with a silly story. Let's see here. I'll tell another funny roommate story. So this is about Ned, Joaquin, and Jamie again, my roommates. And this is about Ned's girlfriend. At the time. So before we had just moved into this house, and we had a bunch of football transfers. Sorry, let's just start that over. Okay, so this story, just it's another roommate story dealing with, Ned, Joaquin, Jamie. This is about Ned's girlfriend, Tamara, and her kind of run in with our house. So he had just got this house, kind of second semester of our, I believe it was our sophomore year of college. And we all moved in and we're hanging out, having people over, and Ned met this girl that we had known. Her name, we'll call her Tamara. She came by, was hanging out, having a good time. She kind of latched herself onto Ned and kind of hit it off and ended up, kind of staying the night and ditching, leaving kind of later that day. And a lot of crazy things kind of happened that day, that morning, I believe. And that night of the party, someone went in my room and threw up in my bed. So I was sleeping on the couch that night, and it turns out that Tamara's ex-boyfriend, who apparently they had broken up very soon before that party, her boyfriend, we're going to name him Atticus. So Atticus came over, was super nice. We had a bunch of rules. He followed all the rules, take your shoes off when you get in the house, that kind of stuff. He took his shoes off, saw me sleeping on the couch, lightly tapped me on the shoulder, I was like, "Hey, dude, where's Ned?" And I was like, "He's upstairs in his room." Went back to sleep. Didn't really think anything of it. And I had known like Atticus and Tamara were kind of a thing, the first couple months of the second semester, but nothing really else. I'd known they had kind of split apart. And yeah, so he went up the stairs, and I kind of stayed awake because I didn't really know what was about to happen a little bit. Just kept my eye open like this, kind of making sure something strange or crazy wasn't about to happen. Well, sure enough, something strange or crazy happened. Not even about 15 seconds later, I hear, "What the hell, Cam, Cam, Cam." And so I get up. I'm in my, like, a white t-shirt and skivvies on, running up the stairs, grab, throw him to the stairs. Does not fall down the stairs, but he gets there and he's yelling at Ned. Atticus is just kind of, he's got the rage in his eyes. He's ready to tear some heads off. And I was like, "Dude, you got to get out of here. You got to go calm down or something." And he was on the football team, so he was like, "Why are you sticking up for him over me? Like, we're teammates." And I was like, "Well, he's my roommate, and you just came in my house and assaulted him. Like, I'm not gonna back you up, dude. Like, that's assault, brother." So just kind of moved on. He had reached out to all four of us, Ned, Joaquin, Jamie, and I, and asked to come and talk to us and apologize. So he came over while we had a bunch of people over, for some public witnesses, and we brought him up to my room just for kind of a median. Brought um, Jamie, Joaquin's girlfriend, uh, and then Ned and Tamara were in Ned's room, uh, making or doing the no pants dance. And I walk in there and I look and I'm like, "Oh, hey, Atticus is here." And Ned is like, "Okay, be right out." So they finish up, come in. He comes up and pretty much only apologizes to myself and Joaquin and Joaquin's girlfriend. Says he doesn't respect Jamie, Ned, or Tamara, and so we didn't really accept his apology. We were like, "You came here to apologize to all of us, yet you're not respecting any of us. You're not respecting all of us." So he ended up leaving. And then just kind of throughout the next kind of month and a half, he would go on leisurely walks by our house back and forth. And we could always see him out the window and be like, "Dude, like, what's going on? What are you doing?" And nothing else really happened, but, just another crazy, silly story. So as another night dawns upon us and we get ready for baseball season, let us make another toast for another, hopefully, chase for 28 for the New York Yankees. But if not, a long and healthy season filled with fun baseball memes, memories, stories, content. Hopefully not a lot of Yankee tears this year. Made a lot of great additions. So as soon as this foam hopefully dies down as the night dawns, cheers. Let's have a great baseball season.